Welcome everybody to our webinar on Stop Looking for New Patients, Help New Patients Find You Through Social Media. We are about 1 minute to the hour. We wanted you to know that you are in listen-only mode and that we will start the webinar in about 60 seconds. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to our webinar today. It is the top of the hour. The name of our webinar today is Stop Looking for New Patients. Help new patients find you through social media. All of you are in listen-only mode. However, if you will look at the bottom right-hand corner of your control panel, you'll see a place where you can ask questions, and as time permits, we will answer those questions today at the end of the webinar. My name is Greg Anderson. I am the Managing Director of the Crown Council, and for those of you who are new to the Crown Council, we are a dental association whose purpose is to help you build a culture of success in your practice. And our presenter today is Mr. Jack Hadley. Jack is a partner at My Social Practice. He's a longtime friend of the Crown Council and is widely believed to be one of the leading social media minds in North America. He understands how to get people to act through social media interaction, and as an added bonus, he's a genuinely nice guy. Thank you, Jack. At the Crown Council, we have as one of our guiding principles to do good in the communities where we live, and one of the ways we do good is through our Smiles for Life campaign, where our participating practices whiten the teeth of their patients for 4 months out of each year and allow the patients to contribute the cost of the whitening to the Smiles for Life Foundation, and most of that goes to a local charity that the practice picks. Jack and his team at My Social Practice provide all of the creative design and ideas and social media and marketing materials for this campaign as their contribution to doing good. And with their help this year, we hope to break through the $40 million mark in total contributions to Smiles for Life. And for that and for much else, Jack, we thank you. We welcome you to the webinar, and Jack, we're looking forward to learning from you today. I will give you the microphone.
All right, thank you, Greg. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks all of you for registering for this webinar and joining us today. I am honored to be here, and thanks for those kind words, Greg. You know, in a few minutes I'm going to talk a little bit more about Smiles for Life, and the reason I want to talk about it is because it has such a tight connection with effective social media marketing. Practices that are, quote, giving practices do much better in their marketing efforts when it comes to using the kinds of tools that we're talking about today. In terms of our title today, some of you may be scratching your heads a little bit thinking, wow, stop looking for new patients? The idea of stopping looking for new patients is probably foreign to most of us, and that's because we've been kind of thinking the same way about growing our practices for many years. And I've been involved with dental marketing in one form or another for 15 or 20 years, the last 8 as My Social Practice. But this title is very meaningful, and I hope that by the time we're finished with our visit today, that you'll agree with me that that's the right thing, the right way to be thinking. This really smart guy, who you recognize, once said something very profound, and in my mind, it applies directly to dental digital marketing, social media marketing in the dental practice. He said, make things as simple as possible, but not simpler. And I would hope that today you'll start to sense sort of the breadth and the scope and the complexity of marketing a dental practice digitally, but at the same time, hopefully, what our goal is to make some things simple. And I'm going to give you a couple of things at the end of our presentation today that I want you to do. I want you to commit right now. In fact, raise your hand, because I can see all of you, just like back in the days of Romper Room when I was a little boy, and the lady would pull out the little magnifying glass and she would say, I can see all of you through the TV. I want you to raise your hand and commit that at the end you're going to try something new, because I'm going to give you a couple of great ideas that you can try today that will make marketing your practice simpler. Why do we do all this? I always like to start with the question why. And what we're trying to do as practice owners and as doctors is to build a thriving practice. And there's three parts to doing that. You got to have great clinical expertise, you got to be able to manage that business, and you got to grow. So that's where we always start. Everything that we do here and everything they do at the Crown Council is designed around building thriving practices. And growth is absolutely an important component of doing that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I wish it were simple. I wish in the next 20 minutes we could solve all marketing problems and all of you would just know exactly what to do all the time. Unfortunately, it's a far more complex idea, as you already know. We know around here that there are what we call the 9 dental digital marketing strategies, one of which is social media. So I want you to know before we get started today that while my company, My Social Practice, is very focused on social media marketing, that I also understand that social media is not the only component of effective dental digital marketing. It's really made up of a number of other components. And a couple of years ago, I sat down with Greg Anderson and Steve Anderson, and we said, you know, what could we do to help practices get their head around and their arms around this kind of a strategy for growing their practice? And we sort of came up with a plan built around this sort of model. And I know we're not going to go through all this detail, but we decided that wouldn't it be great if we could take a couple of days and only talk about growing a practice through digital marketing, dental digital marketing. So we created this conference called the Dental Digital Marketing Conference, and we took a couple of days. We had it in 2015 and 2016, and had practices come out, and we just talked about growing a practice through digital marketing for 2 days. I wanted to mention this in the beginning because we're having the conference again this year. We've moved it from Dallas to Las Vegas. Some of you I know are already signed up for this, but I'm sure many of you are not. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, we've brought in 16, or we're bringing in, I should say, 16 of the best minds that we know when it comes to dental-specific digital marketing and how to grow a practice using digital strategies. And these 16 people are going to be with us in Las Vegas April 28th and 29th, so we're about 6 weeks out, I think, or so from this event. So if you want to learn more about what this conference is about, I'll give you a URL that you can learn more about it. See if it's a good fit for your practice. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but check it out. You can look at the schedule, kind of see who's speaking, and learn more about the conference. You just need to go to dentalmarketingconference.com if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And I was visiting with Greg before we got started with the webinar today, and I said, Greg, we ought to do something fun in the webinar today because we have hundreds of people that are joining us. And Greg came up with a great idea. He said, let's give away a tuition to the conference. The tuition, it's $997 for 2 people to attend the conference. And the reason it's 2 people is we really encourage the decision maker in the practice, whether that's the practice owner or the doctor, to bring along the person that helps implement the marketing, whether that's an office manager or whoever that is. So tuition is for 2 people. The regular tuition price is around $1,000, and we want to give away 1 tuition today, which means you can bring 2 people to the conference. And at the end, I'll give you my email address. It's just jack@mysocialpractice.com. And just drop me an email, and in the subject line put, I want to go to the conference. And I'll have Greg randomly pull somebody from that, those of you that send that in today, and we'll give away a couple of seats to the conference. Does that sound okay, Greg? Are you still there?
Yeah, I think that's great. In fact, we'll send an email out to everybody today and announce the winner.
Let's do that. That'd be fun. All right, so today I want to really keep it simple, like Einstein said. And the way I'd like to do that is I just want to talk about 3 ideas. And I think that that'll be plenty to digest today, and will illustrate the idea of stop looking for new patients, help them find you. And those 3 ideas are, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of paid social media and what share-worthy content is. I want to talk about what user-generated content is. And I mentioned before, I want to give you a couple things that you can do today. But before we start, I want to talk about history for 1 minute. You know, in the old days, 10 or 15 years ago, and I was doing a lot of dental marketing. It wasn't digital back then, but I was helping practices. And what we would do is we'd tack up a map up on the wall, and we'd draw a circle radius around the practice, whether that was 3 miles or 10 miles or 5 miles, depended, of course, on the specifics of the practice. And then the goal was to find the people in this circle that need a new dentist. And we would drop postcards, and we would send things to the new move-ins, and we'd run a billboard campaign on the freeway. And the idea is we had to go find those patients. We got to find those people that need us and need a new dental practice. And that has really changed with digital marketing. Now, a couple things that have not changed is that radius is kind of the same. So we want to make sure that even though we're using digital tools, that we're targeting people that are potentially new patients. We don't need to target people across the country. We want to make sure that we're targeting people that actually could become new patients. So that part hasn't changed. And we know that in that circle, there's only 2 kinds of people. There's people that are already your patients, and there's people that are not already your patients, right? Pretty simple. But now with these digital tools that we have, and particularly social media, we know that there is this group of people represented by the blue circle that are connected to your current patients through social media, and also live in the orange circle, which is the people that could become your new patients. So the intersection of all those is that green area. And there's the opportunity, is in that green area. It's people, because the people in purple that have your current patients that have friends on social media, some of them are not in the orange circle because they live across the country. But statistically, 54% of our friends on social media live in the same geographic area in which we live. So now with these digital tools, with social media networks, we've got this sweet spot, this green spot, that represents this huge opportunity to help new patients find you through social media. So keep that in mind as we think about this, because the strategies are different than they were in the old days. We don't have to go out and find those people in nearly the same ways that we used to. Now, as you know, there are 2 parts to social media posts and to marketing with social media. One of them is more of a branding strategy, which means I want to make sure that the people that find me through social media, that find my practice, can get a feel for what my practice is like, what the culture of my practice is like, what the personalities are in my practice, the things that I do, and whether or not I would be a great fit for this new person or new family to become my patients. That's a branding effort, and social media can be very, very effective in helping you do that. The second part of this, though, the other side of this that works together with branding is the marketing activity. And marketing is very different than branding. Branding has its purpose, but marketing includes different strategies. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And posting something like this is one of our clients that's doing one of our campaigns. And posting this kind of material is really good for branding. So I'm not saying never do this. But the better strategy for marketing is to have your patients help you market. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. So the kind of the essence in one simple statement of this concept is today in dental digital marketing, it's not about turning strangers into patients. It's about turning patients into advocates and putting your arms around the people that love you most, which is your alpha audience. It's that core. You know, you may have 2,000 active patients, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe 1,500 of them don't love you. I mean, I don't know, but I know that there is a core there that loves your practice and have been with you a long time and are happy to share what they know about you with their trusted social media networks. So we're going to find that core and we're going to empower them to become advocates for the practice. Isn't it a relief to be able to take a deep breath and say, wow, I don't have to go find strangers anymore to become my patients? Now, we still find a few strangers here and there because SEO and other PPC and other strategies that I showed you in the very beginning, there are other ways to find people. And sometimes those do come in through other ways, not through these advocates, these social media channels where our advocates are talking and sharing our stuff. So I'm not suggesting that we still don't find some strangers in this circle to become our patients. But if we can work towards this concept, it's so powerful, and we see it over and over again in hundreds of practices that we work with. So it takes you're probably thinking, oh, sounds great, Jack, but how do I do it? Well, here's how we do it, and we're going to talk about this in some detail right now. It takes two things to do it. It takes some tools, but maybe just as important, or maybe more important, is it takes a mindset. You have to think a certain way. You've got to change the way you think about marketing and dental practice. And those of us that are older and are more familiar with the old model, we just have to think a little bit different. And I don't focus a whole bunch on talking about tools because in my mind, tools come and go. And what's hot today, what works today, may not work tomorrow. But I know that if I can get everyone to think right, if I can get a dental practice to think the way this works, then tools can come and go. Something great will come up in next year, and it won't matter. We'll use that tool instead if we're thinking straight. So today, while we're visiting, always remember it's a combination of tools and mindset. So let's go to this first thing. Let's talk about paid social and share-worthy content. What do I mean when I say paid social media? Well, you may have heard the old saying, the old idea that if you want to dance, you got to pay the DJ. In other words, if the DJ turns off the music, guess what? Everyone stands there and nobody gets to dance, and everybody's going to go home early and they're going to be irritated. So you got to pay the DJ if you're going to dance. Well, who's the DJ today? It's General Mark Zuckerberg. He is the DJ of social media. And for those of you who are saying, well, I read an article somewhere that said that Facebook is kind of on the decline, and don't believe it, please. I mean, I read everything there is ever written about Facebook, and I do that because I teach a social media class at the university, and if I don't read everything, man, my students barbecue me. So trust me, social media, when it comes to social media marketing in a dental practice, Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It has been, it is today, and it will likely be for some time to come. And here's what happened. A couple of years ago, Mark Zuckerberg said to himself, hey, I spent 10 years building this 1.7 billion person network, and that real estate, that little news feed, is a pretty valuable place. I'm going to charge businesses to get in there, and I'm going to start charging a little bit of money because it's time to make money. And those of you who have been on Facebook for a long time in your practice, you know that there was a significant shift a couple of years ago, where if you had 100 fans on Facebook and you published something, about 40% of them would see it. But when this change was made a couple of years ago now, maybe, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years ago, the algorithm was changed in such a way that if you don't boost that content or run ads on that content, then nobody sees it anymore. Maybe only 1% of your fans will see it, maybe 2%. But it's no longer 40%. But through this model, and it's not expensive. So when I say paid social, don't think that, oh gosh, I got to find $1,000 every month or $5,000 every month or whatever. No, it's not that. It's finding a couple of dollars. When you post something great, it's finding a few dollars, $3, $5, $10, $8, whatever, to boost that content and get it back up to where 40% of your fans see it. Because if nobody sees it, then nobody can share it. We've done a lot of tests. Back when the Spectre 007 movie came out, we did a test, and we've been doing testing ever since. We do it in small markets. We do it in large markets. We do it in practices that have lots of followers and practices that don't have hardly any followers. And we test and see what kind of money does it take to get back up to that kind of penetration. And typically, like I said, it's just a few dollars. So my recommendation many times to practices is find $100 this month to budget to boost good content on Facebook. Now, don't boost lousy content. We're going to talk about what share-worthy content is, because it doesn't make any sense to spend money and jump your content over Mark Zuckerberg's little pay gate if when it gets to the other side, nobody cares and nobody shares it. So, so if you're going to boost content, make sure it's good content. But the days of free marketing on Facebook are pretty much over. The nice thing is, though, if you get over Mark's little pay gate, then after that, Mark's little strategy for making money no longer is in effect, because people share things without any cost. If you're good content, then people share it. So I said, don't share lousy stuff. So you're asking yourself, okay, well, Jack, what is good stuff? Like, what is share-worthy stuff? What's the kind of stuff that if we publish it and boost it a little bit, that people will see it? Because when people see it, they share it. And even one share, I mean, we do studies all the time, how one share can turn into a reach of hundreds of people on Facebook just by being shared once to 3 people. And then those 3 people share, and those 2 people share, and a few people push it over here and push it over there. These networks work that way. But the content has to be share-worthy. So what makes content share-worthy? Well, we could talk about it for 2 hours. I'm going to talk about it for just a couple of minutes. This little diagram, it actually comes from the very earliest days of social media marketing. And some of the smartest people that sort of were pioneers in this movement labeled it the 70-20-10 rule. And I'm going to ask you, if you're already doing social media marketing, I want you to start using this little concept when you evaluate what it is that you're sharing. Let me explain, and then I'll show you a couple of examples. 70% of the content that you share on social media ought to fit into the category of sharing something that's meaningful to your audience. Now, you need to really, that's why you really need to think about your audience. You need to think about the people in your community and what would be interesting to them. And it's so easy because it's probably the same thing that would be interesting to you, to you if you were on social media. What would you share if you saw something? What would be interesting and share-worthy to you? The bulk of what you share ought to be that kind of content. 20% ought to be in some way connecting with people in some way, or strengthening relationships. And that is often, again, with your patients, with that alpha audience that we've been talking about. So between the 70 and 20, that's 90% of the content that you ought to be sharing should probably not really be about you. And I know that's hard to kind of process, because you think, well, then how am I going to get new patients if I don't run a coupon or a special or invite them to call me and talk about me? How are they going to call me? Like, how's that going to work? Well, as you do this more, it becomes really apparent how it works, and you really will start to understand it. But using this 70-20-10 rule really can help. Now, you'll notice the 10% is not 0%. I'm not saying never talk about what you do. I want you to talk about what you do, but always coupled with content that people value. Now, let me show you a couple examples. One of my favorite guys, and in fact, Craig Spodak, Dr. Craig Spodak out of Florida, he's going to be one of our speakers at the conference in Las Vegas next month. He is one doctor that really understands this 70-20-10 rule. And I'm going to go kind of quickly through just some of his posts on Facebook, but I'd invite you to go to Spodak Dental Group on Facebook scroll through and look at how he publishes content and how he gets people engaged by talking about by sharing share-worthy things. Let me just show you some examples. So here's a post where he talked about the community back at Christmas time, how the community was one of the top places for Christmas towns in America. Earlier in November, he sponsored, you can see his little logo in that photo, where he sponsored the Delray Beach Club Surf Festival and talked about that, because these are things that are interesting to the people in the community. A few days later, it was Veterans Day, and he went and took a photo with the local fire department and talked a little bit about how great they are, and shared that content on his Facebook page. And during Halloween, he did the buyback program with Operation Gratitude, where we support the servicemen. And so, again, the first four things I just showed you, did he talk about dental services that he sells? Did he say, hey, I'm the most awesome smile makeover dentist in the world, come in and become my patients? No, he's talking about stuff happening in the community. Here he sponsored a self-defense class for women in his community, and have them come in, and he brings a little instructor in, and I mean, that kind of stuff is so valuable to the community members that they just want to share it. They want to talk about their dentist when he does stuff like this. Now, here's one. He's not, I recognize not every practice in the world has a patient who's a famous Major League Baseball player, so this won't apply to all of us. But the point is still the same, that he talked about somebody that was very prominent in the community. And in fact, that person helped with some of these other events, and some of the candy buyback, and some of the charity things that Dr. Spodak does. He recently did a underprivileged kids dental day, where he brought in lots of kids from poor areas that couldn't afford dental work, and they did a really nice event. And it's just he's so involved in the community. And I know you already understand that. I know that many of you already do an awful lot in your communities. But what's cool about this is finally we have these tools that allow us to share this content so much easier than before. I mean, before, when you had an event like this, you were hoping that you could get the TV station to come out and cover it, because that was pretty much the only way you were able to get word out. But now with social media, we can get the word out. Dr. Spodak talked about a blood drive. He didn't sponsor it. It was just happening in the community, and he's supporting it. Sometimes he does get television coverage. In this case, during that event, he did get television coverage, and that was good. That was okay to talk about himself just a little bit. He got lots of comments, and 21 shares, and a lot of likes, and a lot of comments. So talking a little bit about yourself is okay, as illustrated by this final slide and about Dr. Spodak. When you look through his feed, you will occasionally see that he talks about dental services. Have sleep apnea? Hate your CPAP? Come in and let's talk about it. I can help you with these things. I'm passionate about dentistry. I don't want to squash your passion about dentistry. I mean, that's what you do, and you change lives. But put it in the context so that it gets shared. And once you give people content they love, you've earned the right. I'll say that again. You've earned the right to market to people, and people are not offended by it. In fact, often they welcome it. They say, wow, Dr. Spodak, I know he's a dentist. I know he's trying to make a living as a dentist. He's doing amazing things in our community, and wow, he could help me with my sleep apnea. Great, I didn't know that. I'm going to him, or I have a friend who has sleep apnea. I'm going to recommend him. So don't leave this discussion today thinking you cannot talk about dentistry. There's a saying at the Crown Council, and I don't know if Greg came up with this, or Steve, or whatever, but they often say, don't reinvent mediocrity, copy greatness. If you want to copy greatness, for the last few years, we've been finding one of our clients who does amazing things with content, and we feature them as the practice of the month. If you want to copy greatness, now you don't copy what they do, you know that. That's not ethical, it's not cool, but you can copy the concept. You can copy the way in which they think and the things that they do. You can go to mysocialpractice.com/POTM, which stands for Practice of the Month, and just study. I mean, we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years, every single month. So study the practices that are doing things great, and do what they do. I mean, if you want to become our client, great. But you don't have to be our client. I mean, everything that I'm showing you today, you could do yourself if you just think right. So go learn from some of the greatest. All right, so that was the first thing, share-worthy content and paid social. Let me talk about user-generated content and what that term means. Many of you are on Instagram, and if you're not, you know what Instagram is, the gigantic mammoth photo sharing platform. It's owned by Facebook. Billions and billions of photos are on there and uploaded every day. If you search that database using the word dentist, so hashtag dentist, you will find that tens of thousands of photos will come back in that search. Many, many, many of which look a lot like these. People are publishing content from inside your dental practice. Hello, I know you already know that. When I would say that a couple of years ago, people would say, oh, well, yeah, really? Like, I didn't know that. But I know you already know that today because everybody's got a cell phone in their hand. So everybody is a publisher. So rather than fighting it, join it. Like, put your arm around folks and say, hey, Sally, I'll bet you're on Instagram. Let's take a photo together. In fact, let's use your camera device. You've got your phone right there. Let's take a photo together. Would you mind just tagging our practice? And let's publish a fun photo together. And oh, and by the way, once a week, we take those photos that have been tagged with our practice, and we pick one of them, and we send you to dinner and a movie just to thank you for tagging our practice. So putting your arm around the people that are publishing publishing content inside your practice, that's what user-generated content is, because you're not generating that, right? Your practice, your team is not taking the photo and publishing that content. What you're doing is you're suggesting to people, and you're training your team to suggest to people that they produce the content. And when it's user-generated, it spreads farther. And I know that makes sense to you, especially those of you that are using social media. Another thing that's really cool about it is that it doesn't require any HIPAA consent, because the practice is not publishing that content originally. You can still share it after it's been published, but when the when the patient shares that photo, you don't need to get permission because you're not publishing the photo originally. So it's just easier to do. All right, so that's what user-generated content is. So let me show you one more example. You remember last summer when we had the whole Pokemon craze and everything went nutso in Pokemon, and I guess they're coming out with a #2, so we might see another little surge in it. But what was interesting about that, and I think it really illustrates the point, is there were a lot of pundits out in the dental marketing world that said, oh, this is a great opportunity to get new patients, because I don't know, I guess they're going to be like walking by the front of your practice and they're going to say, oh, I've been thinking about it. I need a new dentist. There's one. I'm walking past them looking for a Pokemon. I'm going to go in and become their patient. That's not how it works. But that doesn't diminish the value of these kind of trending things. So back then when the Pokemon were really hot, we had our clients print out some little, what we call social signs out of their printer and take some photos. And when people came in, they would say, hey, is your child on Pokemon or whatever, or are you doing it? Because there were as many adults doing it and millennials doing it as there were children doing it. And they would say, hey, we're a Pokemon, I forgot what they call it, like a host place or whatever, where they could get certain valuable Pokemon there. And they would just be part of the conversation. It's not that they're looking for new patients. They want to be part of the conversation. And when you're part of the conversation, people will share it. And so, especially if it's user-generated. So this practice, it was an orthodontic practice, by the way, but they went with Pokemon Fever and they said, comment and post and tag our practice. And when you tag us, we're going to give some movie tickets away. Ready, go. And so the idea here is to have Philly and Fernanda and Marisol and Jason and Stephanie and Johanna. It's to get them to publish. Because what happens is the people that are connected with these families will see their stuff. and because they care about their trusted networks. These are the people that they go to school with, that the extended family, it's their neighbors, it's the people that they work with. These are the people, remember, 54% of which live in the same geographic area in which you practice. So when a patient generates content, it more easily grows legs and has a lot more marketing value than when you publish things yourself. Now, you're still publishing things yourself because it's important for branding, but you're also recognizing the importance of user-generated content. All right, so I hope that makes sense. So we talked about paid social, what's share-worthy, what isn't, and user-generated content. For the last concept, and then I think we're going to have a few minutes to take a few questions, Greg, and I'll have you kind of watch for questions when I get done with this third idea.
You got it.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to talk about two ideas is all. Remember when, let's see, what is it? It's the jewelry store guy that says, now you have a friend in the diamond business or in the jewelry business, right? You've all heard those ads. Well, now you have a friend in the dental social media marketing business, because I'm going to give you two things that you can do today that are truly effective. And let me tell you about the first one. It has to do with Smiles for Life. Now, those of you, and I'm guessing we have several hundred people on the webinar today, there's probably a small handful of you that are already doing Smiles for Life. And so this next 5 minutes will be, or 3 minutes will be a real review for you. But the vast majority of our audience does not know what Smiles for Life is all about. So I want to tell you about it, not because I have anything to gain by this. As you know, 100% of the money that's raised by this goes to children's charities. So I have no stake in this. I'm not talking about it because I have some stake in it, nor is Greg Anderson have any stake in it in terms of Crown Council or anything. It's all about raising money for kids. But I want to tell you how it works real quick for those of you that don't know how it works. This year actually marks the 20th anniversary, and Greg mentioned we're trying to break through that $40 million mark in terms of money raised for children's charities. Our company, My Social Practice, every year we produce amazing materials, and this is part of what you get when you become a Smiles for Life practice. Now, the reason I'm talking about this in terms of social media marketing is because effective social media marketing does not start on the internet. It starts inside the dental practice. And the way that you can combine great social media traction and great share-worthy content with doing good in the world is to use these materials inside the practice to spark conversations. So it gets the team excited, it gets the team excited about doing good, it gets the team excited about sharing with your patients, and it gets patients excited because they know they're doing good in the world. And so all of these printed materials, and I'm just going to kind of race through them, you can look at them in more detail later, but all these tools are designed to make you more effective inside the practice, because when social media starts inside the practice, face to face, hand to mouth, knee to knee, eye to eye, then it spreads online naturally. I mean, you don't have to worry about the online part if you're doing what you need to do inside the practice. So these kinds of materials are designed to help you do that. There's handout cards, and you can look at in more detail at these things later. Social signs, of course, is something that My Social Practice pioneered years ago. And there's lots of signs that are related to brightening your smile for children's charities. These are some signs that are little cutouts, which are fun for the team to use and fun for patients to use. And when they have fun doing these things, they want to share that. They want to share their photos on their social media platforms and social media networks. There's challenges involved with Smiles for Life, where if you meet certain goals, you can shoot a little video of the doctor getting soaked because you met the goals. That kind of content does really, really well. And what it does with social media marketing in mind is that you can talk about this event prior to it happening. You can talk about it during, when you go out and take the little video of the doctor getting soaked because you met your goal. And then what's cool about social media is that that content lives on, and that will remain on your YouTube channel. You can link back to it and say, oh, remember 6 months ago when the doctor got soaked? That was awesome. And so this kind of content really has a lot of staying power, much more so than like a billboard, because you put a billboard up on the freeway, it comes down and it's gone, right? So social media marketing really has these opportunities. I also want to mention, during the Smiles for Life campaign, which it just barely started about 10 days ago, it's March through June, practices that want to do Smiles for Life have access to all of the social media tools for My Social Practice during the campaign. So they can use our publishing tool and the content library with all the marketing stuff. They can publish to all their accounts. I'm not going to go through all this detail right now, but if you're thinking about, gosh, what can we do to learn about how to use social media better, this is an opportunity to do good in the world and at the same time use the tools that really work, which are the ones that we've built. And they're just things that you can use during the campaign, and then if you decide later you want to remain our client, that's fine, but if not, that's fine too. One of the tools that we have, in addition to that publishing tool, is we have our new photo booth, which is just amazing. And it's a tool that you can use inside your practice when you're just maybe too busy to actually engage with your patients and take photos or whatever. Patients can walk up to this photo booth and take a photo of themselves, and they can hold a little sign, a little social sign that you see there, or stand next to the poster, and they can kind of take a photo of themselves and then customize it with some stickers and that, and then they can send it to themselves with one click to their cell phone, and then with one more touch they can share that to their social media channels. And the cool thing is that the image gets branded with your logo and it's tagged to your practice. So it's a chance to get top-of-mind awareness for the practice, but also let your patients really have fun with this photo booth. And you can have the team members involved too. They can take photos with the patient or whatever. But the neat thing about this is it goes to this point that I kept talking about, user-generated content. This is content that the patient generates themselves, not the practice. So these tools are all available for you to use during the Smiles for Life campaign. So you can go to, if you want to learn more about Smiles for Life, go to smilesforlife.org. And let's do this, Greg. If they want to enter the contest I've showed them 2 email addresses. So going back to the Dental Digital Marketing Conference free tuition, they can either use greg@crowncouncil.com or jack@mysocialpractice.com for that entry. But as far as Smiles for Life go to smilesforlife.org. It says, I'm a dentist interested in participating. Click on that link, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do if you want to get started with Smiles for Life. And if you have questions about that, let Greg know, and I'm sure he can answer any questions you have about that. Okay, second idea. Okay, so that was the first idea, something you can do today. And I realize that's kind of that's a little bit bigger commitment, but let me tell you, it's so effective. Okay, the second thing. This is effective too, not quite as big of a commitment, but I'd like to see you do both of these ideas, actually. So let me tell you the second idea. It's March Madness, right? And the kind of stuff that does really well in social media is stuff that's trending. It's stuff that's current. It's stuff that people are talking about today. You don't want to talk about the Final Four in March Madness in September, right? You want to talk about it in March. So we have launched this thing yesterday where you can download some materials. I'm going to give you the URL, and these materials are free, and you can download some print materials that you can print out of your own printer that help you promote the fun of March Madness in your practice. And so they're free downloads. Get your team on board with social media for March Madness. And the reason I want you to consider this is because the principle, remember we talked about tools and mindset? The mindset and the principle you're going to learn by doing a March Madness campaign is the same mindset you're going to use over and over and over and over again when it comes to finding and publishing content that works and that really helps in your marketing. So what you can do is you'll go download, here's some social signs I'm rooting for, and you write in the name of your team, or our office loves March Madness. You're going to print those out of your printer and have your team members or your patients hold those. And of course, if you have your patients hold it, use their phone and have them take the photo and say, hey, I'm here with my dentist today, and we don't agree on who's going to win March Madness, but we're having a fun debate about it, and here's a fun photo, and let them share that. And when you publish, in addition to the social signs I just showed you, We also give you a lot of graphics like this one. We want your visit to be a slam dunk. These are graphics that are related to the March Madness that you can publish on your either Pinterest or Instagram or Facebook or whatever accounts. Not brushing twice a day, personal foul. I think that's kind of a fun one. And again, our office loves March Madness. So now suddenly you've got, remember I told you that the things you do inside the practice, effective dental social media marketing starts inside the practice. So now you're printing out these simple social signs, taking some photos in the practice with team members and patients, and in addition, you're publishing other material on some of your other channels that corresponds with that. And our design team is really thoughtful about this, because you'll notice that the ink density on that little Instagram post, if you were to print that out of your printer, it would use up all your ink. And so we don't want to use up all your ink. So actually we redesign the social signs that you're going to print out of your printer so that they're not so ink intensive, and yet they're designed to go together. So that's all you need to do. If you go to, let me see, did I give you the URL on that? Let me go back. Oh, I know what I need to do. I didn't put in the URL. So what you got to do is go to mysocialpractice.com. I'll give you, in fact, let me skip forward to that. If you go to mysocialpractice.com, that's just the landing page for our website, and click on blog up at the top, and it'll take you right to the blog page. And the very most recent blog post, which I told you, I think we just published it yesterday morning, is the March Madness free download. So just go to mysocialpractice.com and download that. So in conclusion, those are the three things that I wanted to talk to you about today. And I want you to try something new. I want you to leave your comfort zone. You may be a practice that's already stellar in terms of your social media marketing. And if so, man, I'm proud of you, and you're doing great. But try something that you haven't tried before. Consider Smiles for Life. Maybe do March Madness. Maybe train your team to better help your patients publish user-generated content. These are the things that we talked about today that are the difference that makes the difference in your social media marketing being effective or not being effective. Any questions that you have, and we'll take questions in just a minute. I think Greg's probably been watching them. But even what we don't talk about today, I'm always happy to answer any questions. Just email me directly. I personally answer all the email that I get. It's just jack@mysocialpractice.com. And if I don't know the answer, we've got dozens of really, really smart people here at My Social Practice, and I'll put you in touch with the person that understands how to answer the question. So I'm always open to help with that. So with that, Greg, can I turn it back to you, and do we have some questions we can answer?
We do, Jack, and thank you. Your stuff is always so insightful. Here are a couple. If someone wants to know if there is a certain time of day or day of the week that gets the most views, and do you suggest that they post daily, weekly, how often?
Great. The short answer is it depends a little bit. Let me give you a little more detail, though. First of all, it depends a little bit on the platform. It also depends a little bit on the practice and the number of fans that they have and what channels they're actually on. There are some really great tools out there, especially for Facebook, where you can actually view, Facebook will make recommendations based on your page's history as to when you'll get the most engagement. And it's a really cool little tool. And if whoever asks that question, if you want to just send me an email and say, hey, you mentioned something about a tool we can use to know when to post, and I'll send you that link. But there are some great tools out there that will help you know the best times to post. So the answer is yes. There are answers to that, and each platform is a little different. Twitter is a little different than Facebook, but there are tools available to help you do that. And yes, I would suggest that you use them. And in fact, sometimes, like for example, our tool here at My Social Practice, the MSP Publisher, allows you to schedule your posts so that you don't have to set an alarm to say, oh, it's 2 o'clock, this is the best time to post, I better do it right now. You can pre-schedule that to be posted at a certain time. The second part of your question, you said how often? In the old days, and it's funny when we talk about social media marketing when we say the old days, because the old days was probably 2 years ago. But in the old days, I think there was a risk sometimes of over-publishing because 40% of your fans on Facebook were seeing everything that you publish. So if you were publishing 20 times a day, a lot of people were seeing that, and maybe you ran the risk of too much and people unfollowing you. But today, you have a lot of control over what people see. So, and it's because you have to pay to play for the most part. And so our recommendation here at My Social Practice is that you publish daily, that you publish to Facebook once a day. At great content, good share-worthy content, at least once a day. In some cases, we have practices that are posting 2 or 3 times a day and don't see any drop-off in their followers, and it's because they post such great stuff. So it's not too much today, given the paid social model, to post daily.
All right, and this may be related to it, Jack, but if you're building your business Facebook page, what is the best way to get your patients to visit and like your page?
Yeah, I get asked that quite often, and it's a really great question. What's interesting is 8 years ago, when we started My Social Practice, in the earliest days, the dentists were kind of thinking, wow, I wonder if this is a tool I can use. Our biggest thrust was on getting more likes for your page. And the reason was, again, because 40% of those people would see everything that you post. So if you had 1,000 fans on Facebook, 1,000 likes, I should say, 400 of them were seeing everything you were posting. Today, the strategy is a tiny bit different. And I don't mean to say that likes are not important, because more, in terms of reach, more is always better. But we're also finding that practices that have very few likes on the page, when they're boosting that content a little bit with a few dollars, and they're boosting what we've talked about today, which is share-worthy content, that they're many times getting the kind of traction with much lower numbers in terms of likes. So don't stress that you don't have a bunch of likes. And in fact, I saw a study about a year or two ago that said, I think it was 85% of all the dental practices on Facebook had less than 200 likes on their page. So just because you don't have 2,000 likes doesn't mean you can't be effective in today's model. So with that in mind, having said that, it's always good to have more. And I think that the way to do that is, again, just to publish content that is share-worthy. That's how we've built at My Social Practice. If you look at our Facebook page, and we're up to, I don't know, 60 or 70,000 fans, and it's because the content that we share is share-worthy, and dental professionals share it with other dental professionals because the content is something they like, and then what happens is those dental professionals go, oh, that's fun, that's cool, I'm going to like the page. So I think mostly you're going to get more likes by just sharing good content, and there are some practices still that will do a little grab bag or something, and they'll say to a patient, hey, we have this fun little grab bag. If you like our Facebook page, you can reach in there and pull out a little gift card. Maybe there's a $5 Starbucks gift card, $5 Starbucks card or something in there. So there's still some strategies like that, but I think you shouldn't focus. Having likes in and of themselves is not the strategy.
This is related, Jack, and maybe along the same lines, but talk for a minute about optimizing content on Facebook, boosting word of mouth.
About boosting? Yeah, so there's 2 ways, as many of you I'm sure know, there's 2 ways to spend money on Facebook. They're both related to quote-unquote ads, but one of them is called boosting and one of them is called ads. We have done a lot of study. In fact, there is our marketing team here has an ebook that I actually saw the final draft on just yesterday that speaks directly to the strategies of spending money on Facebook. And so look forward to that. If you're not subscribed to our blog, be sure to subscribe to it so that when that ebook comes out, it'll be free and you can download it, and it'll go into great detail on how to do this. For the most part, right now we encourage practices to boost good content and to spend most of their money boosting. And running ads can work as well. It's just a little more complicated, and in many cases, practices that don't have a support, either it's an agency or somebody that can really support them in developing different graphics and maybe testing those graphics and doing what are called A/B splits to see which ads perform better. I mean, there's a lot you can do with Facebook advertising, but it's a little more complicated. So I'm saying in our opinion, for the vast majority of practices, boosting is probably at least the place to start.
Just a couple more questions. With Facebook, is it best to use a page or profile for your posts?
Well, here's the thing. If you go by Facebook's rules, and you can break the rules, and there are some practices that do, but Facebook rules actually require that you not use a personal profile as a business page. Now, obviously, you can end run that because you can say, well, I happen to be a doctor, and I happen to just be a person on Facebook, and I got a lot of friends. The problem with doing that, there's a couple of problems. First of all, you don't have nearly the functionality that you have in terms of the ability to, again, to boost content and to reach people in different ways that you have with a business page. I mean, Facebook is very interested in making Facebook business pages as effective as they possibly can. Why? Because they want more businesses on there, spending more money boosting posts and advertising. So they have developed a tool that is super powerful and has a lot more functionality than a personal page. Now, as all of you know, you can't start a business page unless you have a personal profile. In other words, if you're not on Facebook at all, I have to have a personal page in order to then go in and say, oh, by the way, I want to start a business page as well. And if you have questions on how to do that, send me a note and I'll send you some links on how easy that is to do. But the functionality and the effectiveness is really much greater on a business page. Plus, it keeps in conformity with Facebook's rules.
Two more. One, do you have any Canadian-specific ideas? Smiles for Life is certainly one. It's very active in Canada.
Yes, we do. And in fact, I've been blessed with the opportunity in the last 6 months. I think I've been to Canada and spoke at various events, University of Toronto, dental school there, and 4 or 5 times in the last year or so. And yes, the answer is yes. We have some content that we have quite a few Canadian clients, and so we develop content that is specific to holidays in Canada and to better support our Canadian clients. And if you'd like a link to some of that content, much of which it is available without becoming our client, just drop me a little note, remind me that we talked about Canada, and I'll send you some links to some stuff you can use. Yes.
Is this the time that I say that being a My Social Practice client is the best bargain in the industry?
Oh yeah, that's okay. Right.
Hey, one last question that we'll end with. Will you address HIPAA, patient privacy, posting on social media? I know everybody has that as a question and probably ought to deal with it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And in fact, anybody that would like to learn, have a little bit more detail, probably one of the most read blog posts that we've ever written is the one that drills down a little bit on HIPAA and social media marketing. And so send me a note and say, hey, send me a link to that blog post. You could go to our blog on mysocialpractice.com and scroll. If you scroll back far enough, you'll find it, but I can send you a direct link. I think there's 2 or 3 things to remember when it comes to HIPAA. Number one, HIPAA was not put in place to throw a barrier into your marketing. And I know it feels like that sometimes, but I promise you, if you just dig slightly below the surface and not just freak out over it, it actually is not there to do that. And in fact, it's very, very easy to be HIPAA compliant in terms of how you handle social media if you just do 1 or 2 really, really simple things. First of all, if I were a dentist and I had a practice, I would have a simple policy in place. We have a template that you're welcome to use. It's free to download. It's a Word document that you can go in, read through, and just take 10 minutes and kind of customize it to your practice, and then sit down with your team quarterly or whatever and take 15 minutes and just go through a couple little simple things that relate to HIPAA and social media. It's not hard. So I would have a policy in place. Number two, I would have a permission form, and we have one that it's downloadable, it's free to download. I would have a permission form, a little pad of them or a little stack of them in every treatment room or in the areas of your practice where you're taking photos with patients. And just, it takes 1 second for somebody to initial it, and then I would throw it in its shoebox. Now, don't tell HIPAA I said this. They probably want you to, like, do it in triplicate and file it in 9 different places. But if it were me, I'd throw it in a shoebox in case I ever needed it. I could find it because there's a 99.99999% chance that if you do everything right, you'll never need it anyway. So I would have somebody initial a form. Now, having said that, you'll notice I've said 10 times in the last 45 minutes, the better way is to get your patients to publish the content. And then you simply share it because it does better. It helps market your practice better. So why wouldn't you do that? And when you do that, you don't even need to think about HIPAA because the patient is publishing the content themselves. They're identifying themselves as your patient. So HIPAA is nothing to be scared about. You're not because you're not publishing 20 photos a day that you're publishing on your own, that you have to keep having people sign. So it's not hard to do. It's really simple, and I wouldn't be so worried about it. Just do it the right way.
Jack, thank you. There are a number of other questions, but we've reached the top of the hour. If you have other specific questions, just feel free to send an email to Jack at jack@mysocialpractice.com. I've had a number of questions about the recorded version of this webinar, and before the day is out today, we will send out a notice to everybody that has registered for the webinar where they can find the recorded version, and we'll announce the winner to our digital dental marketing contest. So Jack, as always, thank you for all that you do for so many and for sharing what you know with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Greg. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.